In the last video, we discussed what is Kanban. I talked about if Kanban is a lean framework or an agile framework, and what are some of the guidelines to get started with Kanban. Today, I will talk about when to use Kanban, or more specifically, when to use Kanban over Scrum. Now, this is one of the most popular questions I get asked, and the simple answer to this question is you can use Kanban whenever you want. That's right, we can use Kanban for just about anything. It is the most flexible lean agile approach that exists. But if this is the case, why is Scrum the default approach in many companies? And the reason for that is because the Scrum is prescriptive in nature. Scrum prescribes roles, length of iterations, and events. Now, this may be a little rigid from some people's perspective, but this prescription allows the teams, especially those who are fresh off the boat from the waterfall nation, to slowly grasp the concepts of agile and become more disciplined over time. Now, you might come to me and ask, Vibor, disciplined in what? Disciplined in terms of finishing what is started, working as a team to resolve team impediments, regularly showcasing the work to the client, and reflecting on what worked and what didn't work in the last iteration. The team gets into this habit of continuously inspecting and adapting, which is, as most people say, the backbone of being agile. Once the team develops this habit, this discipline, the team can and should adopt more flexibility by transitioning into Kanban. Having said that, let's have a look at some of the cases where Scrum doesn't make sense at all and where Kanban is clearly the approach to apply. Number one, when the nature of the work is dynamic and emergent. If you're working on a project where priorities of your work frequently change and you just can't wait for the 2, 3, or 4 week sprint to end, you should not use Scrum. An example of this case would be a production support team, where sometimes the team gets into this firefighting mode to keep the system running. Such teams often do not know what they might be working on the following day because the priorities may change very quickly. Kanban is very effective when you need to repeatedly determine the next important thing to do. Second case when you shouldn't use Scrum is when people are simply worried about the changes Scrum adoption would bring. When people are worried about the change of roles, the number of meetings, and other things that Scrum prescribes, we should not try to force Scrum. The obvious choice in this case is Kanban, which is well suited to starting with the current system in place. Due to the lack of any prescription, Kanban does not attempt to push any change. You can drive slow and make changes when you feel comfortable in a more incremental fashion. Third case when Scrum doesn't make sense is when the team is too small. So if you have a team of 2 people, I would advise you to use Kanban. All that process, all those roles, and all those events do not make sense in such a small team. Scrum is well suited for teams of a specific size, but when you are below a certain threshold of small size, for example, 4 or less, I would advise using Kanban. Those are the 3 cases when Scrum does not make any sense. Another question that I get asked often is if you can use both Scrum and Kanban together. And the answer is yes, absolutely. Large product teams often use Kanban and Scrum teams together. For example, in large products, which comprises many teams, the product development team might use a Scrum, but teams such as DevOps and automation can use Kanban. The main thing to remember here is that in an agile environment, you are free to experiment with anything, except when the experimentation is prohibited by bureaucracy. I do, however, recommend that you have a relatively mature and disciplined Scrum team before you go and try Kanban. So if you are a really mature, high-functioning Scrum team and you want to take things to the next level, then Kanban can be a great way to visualize your workflow and bring in new metrics. So there you have it. Use these guidelines to decide when to use Kanban. If you like this video, then give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and do not forget to provide your valuable feedback in the comments. See you in the next video.